Good evening. By way of introduction, for those who don't know me, my name is Jonathan Bourne, the interim principal of Hudson High School. Thank you for coming to our Art Parent Information session. In a moment, I am going to turn things over to our teachers to speak a little bit about this program. We'll be primarily hearing from Ms. Jude Murray, social studies teacher.
Hi.
Also helping us out tonight are Erin Coffin from the science department and Art Sessom from the technology department. So in brief, and I'm not going to do too much talking about this, we have some brief information, you have the handouts as well. What this idea is the embodiment or the structural intention of making sure we create an opportunity for kids at this school to have an opportunity to try again. When I was thinking about a way to do this is, our classes are currently 70 minutes long, right? And in the course of a given day, you practice something 5 times. So that's 350 minutes worth of grading practice without really a chance to try again or to have that checked by someone. This creates an intentional, deliberate 40-minute space to try it again and to get some help with some of these concepts because we throw a lot of things at kids pretty quickly. In essence, this is the scheduled version of this is hard work, you can do it and I will help you, and this is the I will help you part. So with that, and I also want to just say, I'm going to pass things off to Ms. Murray. This has been the culmination of over 2 years of teacher work. When I came on board this summer and heard about it, I was immediately excited about this. You're going to, hopefully we've ironed out every last question, but you may find that there's something we haven't quite answered because for about 2 weeks of push and go of the button, and it's a pilot, and we're going to figure it out as we go. But I do need to commend June and the teachers for an incredible amount of work on this. They're getting paid exactly $0 to do this. This is, definitely a work of passion. So with that, June, the floor is yours. We're going to brief
Thank you very much,
presentation.
Mr. Bourne. Hi there. For those of you that don't know me, I've spent 22 years here in the Holly Halls of Hudson High School. I am a world cultures teacher in the social studies department, and I teach grades 10 through 12. And as I feel really blessed to be here today to share with you this idea that has really been 2.5 years in the making, and to be able to tell you that my 2 colleagues who are present here with me are also 2 of my former students. So I've taught both Erin and Ari several years apart, but they are still my 2 students. And I think the thing that has been really a labor of love for the staff here, 17 of us have been working on this for 2.5 years, is that we really believe in moving to the 7-period waterfall schedule that our students and our ability to create community has suffered. So the first thing we did in the spring of 2017 is we, as a staff, as a community of educators, the 17 of us sat down and we created a survey that we called the School Voice Survey, and we administered it with the help of students to a population of 702 kids and all of the staff. And we collected those surveys and we crunched numbers, looking at data to try to figure out if there really was a need or if we were just hearing a lot of noise. And so this is a values-based, data-driven decision that we've made. And so you'll notice from the PowerPoint that we picked 3 things we wanted to focus on. We want to help students prioritize academics. We believe that kids struggle with taking ownership over the learning process. And so this is a way for us to help coach them in becoming more proficient advocates for their own education. We believe that relationships are critical and that students need to not only cultivate relationships with one another, but they need to cultivate relationships with the members of the staff in this building. And lastly, we want them to engage in community, and that could mean anything from a service project that has meaning for a group of students to feeling like they are part of a community. Today I administered a final in my B-period Eastern Faiths class, and my students basically get to tell their story of faith, the journey that they've been on over the course of the last semester, and it was incredibly difficult to say goodbye to these 20 students that sat before me from September, and I want every student to feel that feeling when they are leaving a classroom. And so this is a mechanism by which we can cultivate that. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to show you a 5-minute student rollout video that all of the young people in your life saw last Friday. We did something that we thought was pretty innovative. We trained a group of students. We asked every teacher of a C period class in the high school to identify a student in their class that they felt could facilitate a question and answer discussion about what ARC is and how ARC would impact their lives. And we did the training in 70 minutes and crossed our fingers, and C period, the video rolled, and all over the building, simultaneously, students were facilitating question and answer, a question and answer session with their peers. And the best part of that experience was my students who were facilitators, many of them, coming back into my classroom and saying things like, I just need you to know. It was like the best conversation I've ever had with my classmates. So, and of course it didn't work. That's okay.
ARC stands for Academics, Relationships, and Community. 3 things that we hope all students are focusing on during their time here at Hudson High School. We want to help students prioritize academics, build stronger relationships with their peers and with the adults in the building, and feel like they're part of something, a member of the community.
Hudson High va a cambiar el horario académico un poquito. Vamos a añadir un bloque extra después de la segunda clase del día. El bloque nuevo se llama ARC. Y el propósito de este nuevo bloque es para reunirse con sus profesores, colaborar con sus compañeros y estudiar principalmente.
Some of the issues I think with the current schedule now is the lack of time students have to get things done in school.
5 classes, 70 minutes each, and that's not enough time, so we're given a lot of homework, and not everyone has the opportunity to stay after.
I work after school and stuff, so I work every day after school, and I feel like I just don't have time to do my homework and stuff.
We're not really given any time to let what we learned in the previous class to just sink in and settle in.
When we have this little time, it's when we get more stressed, and we have something to help us with relieving that stress. It will show better on tests, with grades, with MCAT scores, and all that kind of stuff.
It's really tough, especially for kids who have after-school stuff like work and sports games, and they can't really complete all their work, or they have a hard time doing it.
Right now, I would say one of the problems is it's an extremely intense schedule. So it can be, to a degree, a little confusing because you have 2 blocks each day that are going to be dropped. If you're absent in this current schedule, it is really difficult to A, keep track of what block you're missing, and B, to come up with a way of making up work.
Students who are absent who need to check in with the teacher one-on-one can't really do that without taking away from instructional time in class. And so I think that really one of the weaknesses of our current schedule is that teachers don't have that one-on-one face time with students.
ARC would be a period that's inserted between 2nd and 3rd block every day. On Mondays, you would be meeting with your Monday mentor. You'll meet with them, determine where you're going based on the needs that you've identified for yourself to determine where you want to go in those 40 minutes. So the choice is yours.
The Enriching Students software will allow us in our Monday meetings with our mentors to schedule meetings throughout the week. So a student can select to the teacher that they would like to work with. They can also make a note of what they need to accomplish during that time.
I think ARC will help with the schedule because it will give you this period of diversity where you can see teachers that you don't see that day and get some extra help.
I feel as though it would help me with my grades, with catching up on everything, because I get to spend time with my teachers if I'm having problems in classes. Or I could do some stuff with college, because I have to start applying for colleges soon.
English is not my first language, so it's really hard to get help like going after school, and I had to work as well. Even students that don't speak good English can have this opportunity.
It would be a great chance to get extra help, but not have to stay after school that would interfere with my work and extracurricular activities.
A arte é uma coisa muito boa porque tem muitas pessoas que estão chegando lá do Brasil ou Guatemala, qualquer lugar, e eles têm que entrar num programa que chama ELD. Eu acho que vai ser muito bom porque muitas pessoas chegam com muito dever para eles terem que fazer, que envolve um ELD ou outra classe.
Being able to go to do other things, such as just like take the time to meditate or going to the art room.
Art takes that extra help time and it moves it into the context of our day. We're going to be here and available to one another 40 minutes a day. So every student should be able to find an adult that will help support their academic progress and their sense of community in this moment. Art benefits all students, whether you're an 8th grader or a 12th grader, whether you're an essential student or an AP student, everyone gets this time in their schedule, 40 minutes a day, to be better students.
So that is what all students saw last Friday. And that video would not have been possible without the incredible skill of our HUD-TV community. We're just incredibly lucky to have them. So, where this all began in Mr. Curion's abnormal psychology class with a discussion on why are we seeing students presenting with greater issues of distress, anxiety, frustration, reporting to challenges with depression. And so this is something that one of Mr. Q's students wrote after a class conversation. And we think that this student really captured what many of our students are struggling with. Personally, the expectation to balance so many things at the same time while maintaining good grades and a social life is completely overwhelming, and I have no idea where to put my priorities. Art offers an opportunity for us to help students figure out how to prioritize and where they should be putting their energies in order to experience more success and a little less stress. As I mentioned, we administered a school voice survey, and on the 2 hottest days ever in June, in my classroom, a group of about 60 students literally sat down and crunched 702 survey results. And these are some of the results that stuck out to us, and we presented these to staff, and we began to have a conversation. So one of the things we looked at was self-advocacy strategies, and 82% of the kids said, we are actively participating in our education. And 52% of the staff said otherwise. So as a staff, we actually had conversations about the results of this survey. Why is there a discrepancy? What do you think this is about? Why do students see themselves one way and we see them another way? We looked at problem solving and decision making. And this is a fairly distressing statistic that less than 50% of our students feel like their voice has any sort of power in the decision making process at the high school. We looked at supportive relationships with staff, and when you read this, you think, wow, 64% of the kids feel supported. That's great, we're doing a great job. So, what does that mean about all the other kids? 70% say they do feel valued at Hudson High School, though. So, the next thing we looked at is the big one that teachers always think about. Taking responsibility for your academic success or failure. 90% of our kids feel that they are responsible for their academic success and their failures, whereas 52% of the staff believes the kids really care about learning beyond their grade. So we also had conversations with our students about this as well. I'm like, really? Really, 90% of you take responsibility for your successes and your failures? Whoa. oh, it's your fault if I fail. I'm like, yeah, that's what I know. So we said, something's got to change. There's something not right. So we asked ourselves, I have to keep not hitting the button. We asked ourselves, what would happen if we could fit interventions, enrichments, extensions, and supports into the context of our school day? Would it shift things for our students? Would students and staff taking the same survey after we've done this, would it net similar results? And we'll find out, because of course we're going to collect data from this pilot to see whether or not this is something that should continue. So we decided to try something. We went on a lot of site visits, and we saw a lot of different programs as a group of educators. We saw traditional advisory programs, and we saw study halls, and we saw things that worked and a lot of things that didn't seem to work. And so we said, all right, how do we make a program that will work for our kids? And we saw one that was pretty inspirational up in Peterborough, New Hampshire, called TASK, Teachers and Academic Student Learning Centers, I think is what that stands for. But we said, we think this is the direction we want to head, because we want this to be time on learning. We want students to understand that this is academic time, but we're giving them the power to make the decisions about how to use that time. It's been really interesting to eavesdrop on student conversations over the last week, because I hear my students going, if you screw this up by messing around, you're going to ruin it for everybody. Okay, I didn't even coach them on that. So it is definitely out there that there are kids that are like, well, I'm just going to hang out with my friends. And there are kids that are like, no, like that's not the purpose of this. But we're talking about a culture shift. There are going to be bumps in the road. But the message has been clearly articulated by our student facilitators. This isn't time to mess around and hang out with your friends. This is time to figure out who you are as a learner with the support of a community. So this is what we hope happens. We hope kids will develop skills in prioritizing and goal setting. We hope they'll learn how to advocate for themselves. I did really poorly on that science test. So do you think you should see Miss Catherine? Okay. And then they go off to see Miss Catherine for support. We want them to take responsibility for their academic experience, because the next step outside of this building, they have to. None of us will be there. So if we don't teach them these skills now, I'm not really sure what happens next. So this is what the day looks like. You've got that in your handout. So we've shortened the direct instruction periods of time in the context of the school day, and between second and third period, we've inserted a 40-minute block. On Mondays, the students will be going to their Monday mentor. This is the person that will travel with them for the duration of their experience at Hudson High School. My 10 ninth graders and I are in it till they graduate. So, and they'll be meeting me on February 4th. So the idea is that here is this adult that is literally going to spend the duration of your child's high school experience with them. And if we don't get to know each other in that context, I don't have much hope for us. So we will be using an incredibly simple software called Enriching Students. It's kind of delightful to use. I know we rode the struggle bus a little bit with our Aspen transition from iPass, but we did a training in a faculty meeting, and most feedback from faculty, this happened on Tuesday, was that they understand how to use the software already, which did not happen with Aspen. So, we want you to know that this is a values-based program. We looked at the values of our district, and according to our district plan, these are our values: excellence, strong relationships, and educating the whole child. And we feel like ARC speaks to all of those values. As I said to you, this is a pilot, so we're going to be looking to see if it works. Just like we used data to inform the decision to change the school schedule, we're going to use data to see if we should continue to have the school schedule changed. We're going to facilitate a staff survey and a student survey. We're going to look at attendance records. We're going to look at disciplinary referrals. We're going to look at the eligibility list. Are students being more successful academically? And last but not least, we're going to hold some focus groups. We're going to ask students and staff, is this working for you? And in the context of this, we also will be designing a parent survey. I'm not quite sure how we're going to disseminate that, but we'd like to blast that out to the parent community and get some feedback on what you're hearing reported at home. Is there a reduction in stress? Do your students feel more supported when they come to high school? Is this a place where they're feeling anxious when Monday morning rolls around, or is it a place where they're feeling like it's okay to be here? These are the members of the art committee. As I said, there's 16 of 7, there were 17 of us, but one of us moved on to another district. So there are 16 of us that have been literally working on this for 2.5 years. You'll notice that we represent every department in this building. That was extremely important to me as I was looking to pull together a committee to begin having this conversation. So we feel like we've listened. We are teachers from essentials to AP to ELL to special education and every discipline in between. And we've been meeting once a month for 2.5 years. So I'm going to step back a little bit. I'm going to invite Ari and Erin and Jonathan to, and I will also field any questions that you may have about this change, any concerns or commendations. That's what this is for. We want to make sure that we are completely transparent in what it is we're doing and why we're doing it. So, Mrs. Ducey.
Is this going to take place at X Block?
So that's a great question. Currently, we are separating X Block from this pilot because I have no control over that particular construct in our
Seems like a good use
building.
of time with the X Block to be used for this type of thing,
Well,
especially with guidance.
so my students, the way they have described the difference between the two is that in X Block, that relationship piece of ARC, that relationship and community piece, doesn't necessarily happen. So that's really part and parcel of this. So I don't know. That'll be something that administration will decide beyond this initiative. Yes?
Sounds like a great idea for students. Is it going to be okay for you guys? Is it like taking on an extra prep?
That's a wonderful question. We have been 2.5 years of conversation about this. 2.5 years of dialogue about this. Yeah, so that's the concern, right? The teachers are going to think we are modifying their contractual day. Well, so here's what we're asking. We're asking teachers to be available. This is more about relationships and coaching and facilitating student learning. It looks different than what we're doing when we're doing direct instruction in our classrooms. So there's no additional prep required other than your physical presence being there for kids. So that is really why the staff has been, bless our staff, because when this was first presented to them, they're like, what are you talking about? And at this stage in the game, most staff is like, let's do it. Let's see what happens. Because they see that this could potentially be a benefit. Because how many of us chase students to make up work because they're absent? Or how many of us just want to grab one of our kids and explain it to them one more time, but we can't in the context of our school day. I can be many things to many kids, but not all at once. And I think we all recognize that about our job.
And I just wanted to add to that real quick. It's also an opportunity with after school, kids come by, they forget to come by, you stay, they're not able to make it, they forget to have a doctor's appointment, or a whole bunch of kids come by and you can't get to every single one of them, and so it's time that isn't necessarily designated to a specific purpose. With the software and with this program, it's an opportunity where when your Monday mentor schedules your student, there is a specific comment that says, Susie Q was absent on anatomy and physiology, her quiz, she needs to make up chapter 4 quiz. So she goes there, you already have it ready, there's no time wasted, when they just show up and are like, what did I miss, right? And so it's like this whole, it's time designated for this to happen, and it takes away the whole chaos piece after school. And hopefully,
Or during school,
or
because
during school too.
just because you're teaching does not mean that they don't want your attention.
Right.
There's like, someone blows through, Miss Murray, I'm in, and you're like, what? No, I'm teaching.
They need help learning how to enter a seat.
Yeah.
But one other thing is too, is that there was some concern about shortening the blocks, right? But I think any teacher probably in this building could tell you that the first 10 minutes of the block is spent trying to there's 10 kids right up here in front of you, and it's like you take 10 minutes to try and get them to sit down, this is going to alleviate that, so it's literally going to be 60 minutes of, okay, sit down, we're getting started right now, there's an opportunity to sort of make better use of the class.
And there's more opportunities for them to be able to, sometimes you're not sure throughout the day if your students have checked in with an adult about something, and now they have that relationship. Because I know I spend some of my class time following up with someone who told me something happened over the weekend, and I'm double checking, did you go talk to so-and-so about that, or do you still need to? And hopefully this kind of gives us that safety net, because there's definitely concern over if all of the students are accessing the supports that they need throughout the day.
Yes.
Are there going to be limits on how many students can go to one teacher and how that can be managed? Because if one student was absent, needs to make up a quiz, and there's 2 students getting instruction while they're doing that, then that's counterproductive.
Yep, so there's a limit. 15 students can sign up for any one teacher during ARC. Teachers can reduce that to 10. Teachers like me can increase that number, which I have, so I will take more kids than that. And as far as instruction time and making up an exam, ARC is not about group instruction. ARC is about individual assistance. So if a child is taking an exam, a teacher should be able to sit next to another student and assist him with writing an essay or her with an essay. So this is not a teacher delivering instruction for 40 minutes. This is a teacher literally working with students on what they need to work on an individual basis. And there may be 10 kids in a room all working on different things. It's the teacher's responsibility to float between those students. And so you're supporting, but you're not doing direct instruction during that time.
The one, just sort of modification on that is sometimes teachers who want to have an extra review for a class. For example, I have 3 classes of chemistry that are all, there's an exam coming up, and I just I need to reteach this one thing. I put up my class limit to take all of those 50 kids, just for an example, and schedule them so that I pre-schedule them. They come see me on Wednesday, and my guys are just going to go back over significant figures real quick. So in that case, the purpose is a review, and in that case, that student can't schedule themselves for anything else because I pre-scheduled them for a review the day before a test.
In a case like that, who decides that priority? If you feel that it's a priority that you have a review session for your class, but a student within your class has an urgent need to work with another teacher on something else, who makes that decision?
Well, that's something that I would say that they need to communicate. They need to communicate to their Monday mentor, and then communication between me and their Monday mentor would need to happen, and then we can make arrangements for that.
And it's true that it's true that we're encouraging the students to take control of situations like that, because as adults, we all come into conflicts where you have a couple of different things happening at once. And the hope for the students is that they're able to say, I see that Ms. Cochran has already scheduled me, but I actually really need this essay help. If I go talk to Ms. Cochran, is it okay if she cancels me on that Wednesday so I can go to Ms. Alboga for that additional help?
And the other thing that I want to stress is that ARC happens Tuesday through Friday. And if we're really working with our students in the Monday mentor capacity, the hope is that eventually, not immediately, eventually students will be able to look at their assignments, and there will never be that, oh my goodness, I have to see this teacher tomorrow moment for a student on a Monday. Again, it's a culture shift, so that's going to take a while. That's the goal.
Good question.
How are mentors chosen?
At random. So, right, because I teach 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, but go 9th grade. So what we did is there was a team of teachers that a subcommittee of the overall group who sat down and looked at splitting students up into groups. And by and large, it was done sort of alphabetically, and then once the kids were filtered alphabetically, then it was like, that's not a good combination. Let's shift. So there were teachers representing all grade levels in that decision-making process, or, I don't know, this would be a better fit for this student, and so yo hablo un poco español, entonces, if I have a student who, and I do, may need somebody to explain this in Spanish, like that's why that student was sort of slid into my group, because you want someone who can at least communicate fundamentally in a language that they're comfortable in. So that's how all of the decisions were made. Once the groups were formed, we used a random number program, and every teacher got whatever grade was spit out of the number program. So there was no like, oh my goodness, I have to have. The one exception, if teachers are retiring this year, they got seniors, because we felt like that wasn't fair. So that's how it happened.
I'm curious, when you have a group of like 15 students coming to see you, are you going to be able to adequately accommodate a child's IEP with tests and so on?
And that's why we have paraprofessionals in the building. So if there is support necessary, then we have the wonderful paraprofessional corps that works in this building who will be there to provide support and assistance in that particular case. And a teacher will know that that's necessary because through the Enriching Student software, when you open it up, it lets you know that Joey is coming to make up a test. Joey has small group testing. I've got 15 kids in here. That might not qualify for small group testing. I need to grab one of my paras to support that effort. So that's all completely plausible. But the other thing is, they may naturally be small groups. It could be a day when there's only 5 students in there. So that's going to be sort of on a when you open up your program, let's see what our needs are. But yes, the goal is to support students no matter what they need. What they're receiving academically, they will also be receiving during ARC, because ARC's an academic period.
I just want to clarify, they're going to be assigned to teachers?
No.
Okay. So
Paraprofessionals are assigned to
No, to teachers for the Monday mentors.
Yes, they're assigned.
Okay, and so, all right, so there isn't a situation where a kiddo can't make that decision for himself or
Correct.
herself?
They cannot. Now, if there's a crisis, that's something that we'll have to work through, but they cannot make that decision. We made that decision for them. We went back and forth on this, and the reality of the matter is that we equally divided our student population by our staff population.
And would there be an appeal process if that kiddo doesn't get along with the teacher?
Oh, that would be something that would be addressed, but I don't
have to ask this because I know all of you guys. But
right, absolutely, but that like the appeal process has to be it needs to be legitimate. Like I don't like the perfume that Miss Murray wears. It's not only like too bad, get over it. In life you'll be near people you don't like their smell. So I mean it is that it needs to be for it would need to be for a seriously legitimate purpose, and that would be something administration would step in and facilitate. Certainly, yeah.
Awesome.
And how many students will be in the mentor groups?
They range from, I don't even think we have one that's 15, do we?
I have 8.
Yeah, I have 10. So I think the max is 12. Yep, for Mondays. Yes.
2 questions. So if, I'm assuming then on Monday, they're pretty much setting their schedule for the week.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yep.
So if during the course of that week something comes up, like a test review or something, or, I thought I knew what was going on in AP Physics, but now I don't, and I really need to kind of figure that out. Is there an opportunity for them to contact that mentor and say, hey, can I adjust this, or?
We're being really firm about that, and the
Okay.
answer is no, and that's why there's extra help, so after school. So if that, also, the hope is that students know a week in advance that they're taking a test, right? So if you know you're struggling with a concept, right, and you know the test is Wednesday, you tell your Monday mentor, I gotta have Tuesday with Mr. Pryor.
Right.
And so that's also again a culture shift,
Or
right?
even
So-
not that there's been an exam scheduled yet, you were in class, you didn't get it, I need to go back, do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's what we're hoping, like, don't wait for this test to be scheduled necessarily, like, you didn't understand this one topic, like, it would be really helpful if I could go sit with Mr. Pryor.
But you're saying there's like still like after school, so still like, you know,
Yeah, we still have our
if new materials like done on Tuesday and they always have like Friday, you know, pick sixes or whatever, and so, you know, it kind of comes up during that week, but there's always like after school.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it can't go away entirely, right? Yeah, absolutely.
So to that point, I mean, for if a kid hears a concept, they're not going to know ahead of time what they need to. So it sounds like if they struggle on Tuesday with something in physics, they can't then schedule to go see the teacher until next week.
Correct. Or they
But
can
they
stay
can
after
go, they
school.
can still go away.
Yeah.
And I think usually if you're covering a new concept on Thursday, you're not all of a sudden gonna have a test on it Friday and have like that panic set in. Hopefully, that's not occurring. And so in, like, again, we're asking the students to take responsibility for their own learning, like, okay, Miss Murray actually got booked already, and I can't see her during art period this week, or on Wednesday, and I know I have a test Wednesday afternoon. That means I need to go see her Tuesday for the check-in. And it's like, it's really trying to coach them into like, how do you schedule yourself when you have so much going on? Because as you get older, it's only going to be more instead of less.
And this is not to do away with extra help. This is to change the way we do business. So that one-on-one coaching facilitation is also happening as part of the school day.
And making the extra help after school more effective too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just like a rationale, you know, that occurring between the second and third blocks. Because what I'm hearing from my kids is that why can't it be a little bit later? That's when we've gotten more work at that point, so that if we don't have something we need to speak to the teacher about, we can at least get some help.
So I can tell you why it's second and third, because if it were at the beginning of the day, students would come late, and if it's at the end of the day, we're dealing with lunch schedules. So and it can't, like putting it between lunch schedule and last period of the day, so it really wouldn't necessarily work because we're trying to facilitate lunch for 867 students. So this really worked as the best point in the day. And if they don't have any work to do that day, that's where enrichments come in. So let's say you've always wanted to take pottery and you've never gotten into pottery. We're eventually going to begin layering enrichment opportunities into the schedule so that if you're like, oh God, like this week, I don't have anything to do on Wednesday. When you're talking to your Monday mentor and you're like, well, have you ever played with clay? And you can go to pottery class, or you can go to open gym because the PE teachers are hosting open gym, or you can, Thursdays Ms. Murray does meditation. So you can go do a body scan meditation in my room with me. So there will eventually, not immediately, but eventually be enrichment
I think that
opportunities.
it's more the concern that I was like, so on a Monday, they're not going to know if they're going to get slammed on Thursday for homework. You know, and my kids generally are always getting their homework done that night or the next day. You know, they have it done, they're not going to leave it till, you know, homework for the fourth block until the open period the next day. That's just not something they'll do. However, if they, you know, have the first two blocks and they have nothing, they've now been scheduled, if they've had to schedule on a Monday, now they're sitting doing nothing, I guess.
And I can hear that may be an issue with your children. I don't know how to answer that because I know that for a majority of the students that we see, that space, they'll find some use for it. Whether it's doing research on colleges that they might be interested in going to, doing something with the counseling department, that there will be other opportunities that they will avail themselves
They
of.
could read a book for 40 minutes if they want to read. I was like your daughters, where I had homework, I had like checklists, and I would go at the edge. And I'm like that very much so, where like I wouldn't have anything to technically do during art because I am that type of person. It would have been a very welcomed time in the day. I would have loved to have like read. I read so many books, so that could be something, you could have like book clubs, for example, where there's not like a making activity, or I've been encouraging all of my students, because I teach the like Adobe Suite in the building. So I would keep telling my students, like, if you want more time in Photoshop or Illustrator, like, sign up for me during ARC. You can come in here and you can make something, and you can just have that time to play in the program where there's no grade attached to it.
Right, so I mean, I know we haven't been able to assuage your concerns in that regard, but I can't. Like, I can't assuage your concerns. Yeah, absolutely, but again, we have alternative programs that provide free space in the day for students who are taking AP courses. That's what Mrs. Ducey was talking about, the X block is. So, I mean,
I do think when I think of really self-motivated, self-focused students that are going to go home and do their work, you know, if we can chip away 40 minutes of that homework load off of them and onto us, get them to bed 40 minutes earlier than whenever the heck they're going to bed, that's a good thing. You know,
I don't disagree with that. I guess it's just more of my concern is, you know, and maybe that's the feedback that you'll get.
We may,
that, you know, pushing it back even one block might be helpful.
And I think students may just come to be more accustomed to, because having it at the time it does, they will follow their first 2 blocks, which they haven't had the day prior. So there's a pretty good bet you're going to walk out of that class with some homework assignment if you hadn't seen them the day prior, and you can go right from it to doing that homework. And for me, this is something that doesn't happen, so if you want to talk to Dr. Rodriguez about an ARC for me, I appreciate it, but when I leave a meeting and I'm like, oh, I gotta go type this thing, I'm usually walking into another meeting, I'll go home and be like, I didn't type that thing. So this allows someone, while it's fresh, to take the information and get right to it. They're generally more efficient, more effective at that when it's fresh, and it's done. And then they can move on to the next thing, knowing like, whatever I thought I had for homework tonight, and I have a 40 minutes lesson.
but we did see many different programs, and none of the programs that we went and visited are at the end of the day. They're all similar.
I totally see that. I feel like
I wish I had a better answer for you, but we had no idea. We had no idea what it's gonna. We literally, like, this is a leap of faith, and things are going to happen, and we're gonna have to on the fly manage them. And if we can't manage them, we're gonna have to talk about it. So the committee is continuing to meet through this whole process and continuing to sort of absorb data and try to figure out what's working and what's not working on the fly, and support both staff and students with the change. So, yes.
I have 2 questions. How long is the pilot program for?
Till the end of the school year. We're gonna sort of close it out, I believe, at the end of May, and start doing some sort of feedback out to the community about what we're hearing and what we're thinking. So yeah, so it's substantial enough that we can see if it works or not. Yeah.
Number 2, I think you might have mentioned it, but I'm not quite sure. So what if you have a child that meets with a mentor on Mondays, that's what it is, right? And they don't really know where they need to go. You know, as a parent, I can't hold my child's hand every single day.
No, this is great though.
This is
the software.
Right, so between the software and then the relationship with that teacher, right? That teacher can be like, come on, you know, are you banging it out of the park, getting straight A's all over the place? Who do you have for teachers? Let's take a look at your grades. Let's talk about your classes. Which classes do you feel better in, do you feel worse in? And one of the things we encounter, or I encounter a lot, is like, I can't go talk to my teacher about that. It's like, yes, you can, let me help you. Right, let me send an email to Miss So-and-so and say that, you know, hey, Miss Murray, you know, there's a kid who wants help from your class. He's terrified of you, as you can imagine. Right, so like, he's coming in a little hot, you know, so you just help foster that thing, and then 99 times out of 100, they're like, oh yeah, that was so much easier than I thought it was. So even to just, and I think, you know, there's also a difference between doing the work, right, doing the academic work, and then kind of having that, like, I get this now. I get this topic. Right, I have a 12-year-old at home, and I'm trying to tell him the difference. There's the difference between like taking time to understand the carbon cycle and just doing the carbon cycle. So like, it's a little bit better to do that. So this even allows time for the kid who's fairly confident can fire away. The other thing I'll tell you that's important to this, and I had a whole room in my last school. It was once a week, 10 minutes. It wasn't much, but that 10-minute connection. They're doing an announcement for a talent show, and I had a freshman girl who was the quietest girl in school. Come up to me, hug me on the sleeve, can I do the talent show? I said, yep, let's go. Let's go sign you up right now. I highly doubt that kid would have done that if she didn't have someone she could go to that she felt comfortable with as a buffer to just help that happen. So it's a way of providing access.
So that software, parents would have access to that as well?
I don't believe there's a parent view portal to that, but I think we, if you ever wanted to see who's my kids seeing and what are they doing, we'd be able to generate
Absolutely,
reports about
because
that, yeah.
the really cool part about the software is when the Monday Mentor opens it up, it keeps track of who your child is spending time with. And so you can actually see whether or not that, like who are you spending time with, how is that benefiting, that's a whole conversation that can be had with the student. But it's an internal software, it is not Aspen. So you won't be able to plug in and see it.
We'll also be emailing, we're going to be emailing their schedule to them, so after I sit with, Jimmy, I'm like, okay, I'm going to email you your schedule, so then like make sure you star that email or like snapshot a picture of it so you remember where you're going. And there's other options. The school that was using the software before us was printing out their schedule, like all of the students' schedule that they had. So if my kids, I could just post it on my doorway.
But that's because the email feature is new.
Okay, so that's how they'll be able to remember it. And then me as their Monday mentor, they come to me on Wednesday and they go, I forgot. And they're like, okay, how do we problem solve this? Where was it when you had it? It's in your email.
So it'll go right to their Hudson student email. So when you're done scheduling them, you hit the button and the software emails out every student's schedule to them. So they will constantly have access to that through their email. And my understanding is we're going to be one-to-one next year. Is that right? Yeah, next year we're going to be one-to-one. So every student will have, my seniors don't have Chromebooks. So every student will have a Chromebook. So there's no reason why they can't access their email anytime they want to access their email.
And this software ports very well to a smartphone. Almost everything nowadays that's web-based does computer smartphones rather intuitively, and this does as well. So if you have a senior, they have a smartphone, they can do this. A couple little things, like from the principal things that brought up. On Aspen, we will be creating a block of time that's called ARC. There won't be a teacher assigned to it. And that's just so that when we have our bell system running, it lines up, okay? If this becomes a full-time thing, you will see the name of the ARC teacher on there. To do that now on the live side creates a tremendous amount of work. We may get to the point where Ms. Johnson and I do that over February vacation, all right? But if not, we can do it throughout the summer if it becomes the full-time work we do here, and then you would see on the schedule who your student's ARC teacher is. So it can help facilitate that communication. We are also not running ARC on MCAS days, half days if we have any weather delays. We're just going to stick with the schedule.
Yep.
And in June, we have some science MCAS days, and it's June. So
Right,
I think
and the seniors will be gone, and it's a really good time to sit with our students and have some real conversation about whether or not we want to run. So, yes.
So if a child has work that they need to do that isn't necessarily tied to a particular teacher, so say they feel pretty confident in the class, they have an essay to work on, where do they go? Like, I mean, can they just go to the library and not take up that teacher's space? Because I mean, if you're limited, you wouldn't want somebody who really needs to be there to not be able to be there because your kids are going to be sitting in the corner doing an essay,
So it would be a really rare thing for a student to need help in world cultures, which is the class that I teach. So my hope is that when they leave my room, they understand what I have articulated to them. So I find myself helping students with a wide variety of topics. Some I'm less versed in, like how to graph parabolas, but I figured it out. So that would be something that would happen. So like if they're a student that's like, I just need space to get some work done, I'm gonna go to Miss Murray and I'm gonna like sit in the back and I'm gonna work on my essay, and I know she's there if I need her to proofread. But she's not my English teacher, and that's okay, because I know her, because I've had her before. So like, I had some students who were like, I haven't seen, Mr. Roy since 8th grade, and I'm like, hey, you can check in with Mr. Roy during ARC. So we also think that will happen as well, that students will reach out to teachers that they may not have this year.
No, I think that's great.
Yeah.
I just, like I said,
But there will be plenty of spaces for them to work independently, sort of in the presence of an adult, but not necessarily
It's part of the, I continue to cut you off. It's part of them like taking responsibility for it too, like if they want to work on a college essay or something, and maybe they don't want to go sit in the library, but they find Ms. Murray's room incredibly stimulating and cozy and fun to be at. She has a really comfy chair, then they can go do that.
Or in June when it's 100 degrees in there.
Then maybe you don't go there. That's why they come to the computer lab. So they come to decide, no.
And I think part of the shift too is asking the student, where do you want to go?
Yeah.
You know, where are you most comfortable writing?
Right.
And, you know, and there's lots of options that can kind of.
But when we get further into this and you start talking more about like the enrichment, particularly like guest speakers, college, that kind of stuff, is that gonna be like scheduled like ahead of time that they can plan for?
You got it.
Okay.
Yep. We're actually, the time frame we're throwing around is 3 weeks notice. But we thought that was reasonable, right?
So I can get my kids to think out of the 24 hours.
Yeah, so that's what we're hoping for. And then of course that's gonna need to be managed, disseminated to staff, so all of the Monday mentors know what's happening. Please.
So what's the expectation when they go in to see the Monday mentor? Because clearly the mentor is going to have 10, 12 kids to see.
And they're gonna be
40 minutes.
scheduling them individually.
Right, in a 40-minute
Right.
period. So what's the expectation of the student to go in?
So it's going to look very different depending on sort of what the tone is and how that's established with the community in that room, right? So it may be that, so one of the things we're talking about is we have created already, a worksheet where we ask the kids to think about what's coming up for the week, fill it out, and it's like, what do I need to accomplish? Who do I think can help me with this? And then they come to you with this plan of, okay, I think this is what I need to do this week, and you talk about it. So that may be going on. Kids may be, in the case of my room, I already plan on having like some crazy riddles and puzzles up that they can share, they can solve as a community while I'm meeting with them individually, and then we'll talk about it as a whole group when they're done. We've created a Monday manual with exercises like that for staff to be able to access if they choose to do that. So it's going to look differently. Part of it's going to be personal planning, and then it's going to be conferencing with a teacher, and then eventually it's going to be starting to get to know one another. In the beginning, it's going to be all scheduling, because we're all getting used to it. But as we get used to it, the hope is that there'll be more community development that happens.
I mean, you may have kids who walk in to your Monday thing and they schedule themselves. And it's more a dialogue of what are you doing this week and what. And then there's some kids that are going to be waiting for the mentor to schedule them, you know, and then a kind of a blend in between. So maybe to begin with, all 12 kids might be sitting with their laptops open waiting, but then as time goes on, once they get the gist of it, they'll say, you know what, I got that math test this Thursday, let me see, you know, Miss Monjo on Wednesday. Boom, and we'll do it that way.
Please.
Oh, 2 things. But do the kids have access to the software too?
No, just their schedule.
Just their schedule.
Just their schedule. We did that on purpose,
Okay.
because we want this to be something that's done in partnership with
Right,
an
right.
adult, not in partnership with your best friend. Because that may or may not be in your best interest. So, and we know that that's going to happen as well, but if you're talking to an adult about that, we can help circumvent some of that.
So what if a kid says, doesn't have anything they want to get done that week? That like Allison was saying about they feel like they're on top of their studies and maybe seeing kind of as a study hall. Do they go to the room with their mentor, or do they have to sign up to be somewhere else?
They can go wherever their heart desires. They can see the same teacher twice in a week. So if they're a kid that's got it all together, number one, I want to be them.
That's not my job.
Yeah. I think it would be great. But they would, so maybe they did develop a relationship with their Monday mentor, then they could sign up to go back to their Monday mentor one day.
But only 2 days in the week.
But only 2 days in the week, right? Because we want to make sure that, like, some of us have students that would, they would combine us. And yeah, we're trying to break that dependency a little bit. So yeah, absolutely.
At the end of this, how are you guys going to assess how effective or not?
Great. So we're going to look at attendance records. We're going to see if kids are coming to school more often, and we're not having the glut of children in Saturday school for tardiness. We're going to look at eligibility lists. We're going to see if kids are showing academic improvement, if that eligibility list is shrinking. We're going to look at disciplinary referrals, because if you're developing relationships, disciplinary referrals should decline, because there's this whole support network now that's like watching you. We're going to hold focus groups, so in the Monday mentor groups, we're going to begin engaging our students in how this is working for them or not working for them. We made you an abbreviated version of the extensive student voice survey that we did 2.5 years ago to see if there's a shift in those statistics. We have the survey, it's ours, we designed it based on a national survey that's administered to over 5,000 schools. So that's a possibility as well. And we're gonna talk as a staff, which we have been doing for the last 2 years to implement this. And this is, as I said, it's been a really transparent process. So it's been constant dialogue, and we've been talking to our kids as well. So what do you think about this? Do you think this will work? Because, you know, the movement among the kids was they all wanted study hall. And we killed that for them. So, which, you know, initially some of them, well, other schools have study hall. I'm like, yeah, this is so much better. You hang out with me. You know, so, I mean, so that we're really, we don't know. So that's how we're going to gather data. And then that data then becomes, it belongs to the community so that we can actually talk about it.
So another piece too, at the district and administrative level, we've looked at quarter one grades, failure grades, and there's the new data person in the district who's able to really disaggregate that data and break it down. And the majority of our students fail with something between a 50 and 59 average, which usually is a question of a missing lab test paper or something. So obviously correlation is not causation, but if we look at quarter one, quarter two without ARC, quarter three with ARC, that should be a good sample to see if those grades are, and I think, well, I can say, you know, correlation is not causation. You have to ask what changed, and if all the grades go up, say, well, what changed? You know, I think that was a factor too, so.
And we don't know, because, I mean, it's taken us 2.5 years to get here. I don't think one quarter is gonna necessarily show us everything we need to know, but it's what we've got to work with. So, yes.
I'm curious to know, I have 2 questions. One is, what is the collaboration going to be with guidance for our students, with the mentor and their guidance counselors, especially for juniors? And 2 is, what happens if the teacher's absent? How does that affect this whole scheduling?
So I'm going to start with the teacher being absent piece, because obviously that was something that we had to figure out for the staff, right? So Monday mentors have buddies, and we are able to access our buddies' homeroom list. And so if a teacher is absent for the day, and of course the students will know who the buddy of their Monday mentor is. One Monday mentor will scoop up the other person's Monday kids, and they'll take them all in the room and work on scheduling all of them. The other thing we've shared with students is, if you're absent, send your Monday mentor an email and let them know what's going on in your life, and they'll meet your needs for you, right? So we've talked through that all. I know I have a partner who is also doing 9th grade, who's in my pod. We're gonna do some programming together. We're super excited about it because it gives us a chance to work together as well with students. So staff is taking care of that. So we've got each other's back. We will take care of scheduling the kids. If someone is absent, it's not gonna be a problem. If a teacher is absent Tuesday through Friday, there's a substitute. Now, that may not mean that your immediate needs are met. People get ill. We have to have some flexibility in that area. But that's how it will work. So as far as the Monday piece is concerned, we're gonna cover for each other. Tuesday through Friday, if I were sick, there would be a substitute in my room. That substitute would also cover my ARC period. While that may not meet a kid's articulated needs in that moment, sometimes you can't help getting the flu. So that's how that will be handled. And I'm sorry, please remind me what the previous question was.
I was just curious to know
guidance.
What that collaboration looks like.
So the school counselors have groups, they're Monday mentors. And then ultimately, all of that, the school counseling programming will run through ARC. So they will schedule that programming for kids during ARC time as well. And then ultimately, we've talked about when we get to the opportunity for enrichment, the counseling department may offer some group work, which would be wonderful. So that's sort of the connection. I mean, school counselors are teachers. We're expected to engage with students in a similar way.
But I think it's also something that will develop through the pilot process and beyond, potentially, where once a counselor gets more familiar with this as a routine, this is kind of like a new tool, right? So a lot of it's learning how to use it. So, you know, if I'm a counselor, I get a call from a parent, like, hey, I'm really worried about my son, he's got C- in chemistry class, what's going on? Generally, the guidance counselor has to reach out to the chemistry teacher, and sometimes, or perhaps sometimes not, and it's a little bit of trying to catch up. This would allow, you know, someone thinks, oh, you know what, let me talk to Mr. Langdon, that kid's, you know, Monday mentor, and say, hey, I got a call, you know, so-and-so's not doing so well in chemistry. Can you make sure they see the chemistry teacher or chat with them about what's going on in chemistry, and just help facilitate that as well? You know, I can't promise that's going to be the thing right off the bat, and I'm actually, someone might come up with something more creative and more useful than that, and I think that's the other part about it that excites me. With a relatively fresh set of eyes, this is a very creative and, you know, staff a lot of ingenuity. I'm curious about some of the really neat ideas they come up with on their own. So there's potential like that we haven't even imagined yet. I mean, I think the guidance, connecting with the mentors, connecting with the kids is a great opportunity for them.
And an example of that innovation is there's a teacher who's not on the art committee who, as we began rolling this out, started thinking about the Monday piece and giving kids an opportunity to think through how they're going to schedule. And she created the worksheet that we're going to make available to all staff to provide for students to give them some thinking time before they actually schedule. So that's really exciting because this is a woman who sort of only just sort of heard about it and was like, oh, I think I can help this process out. And that's fantastic. That's what being in a community is all about, so.
We talk about academics and like sports. Is there also vision on the mental health and providing kids with mental health?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think in the early stages, we're going to really just try to stick with teachers being present. But yeah, I mean, you know, that's my thing. So we are going to do some social and emotional learning opportunities for students as well. Yeah, it's going to be slow, but that is also the ultimate goal.
I know you want to do like the meditation piece of it too, but the other nice thing is, especially like 8th graders coming up to the high school and removing recess for them, if they want to go to gym on Friday because they know they're playing basketball for 45 minutes and that exercise is going to be something that helps them, you know, calm their ADHD and helps them sit for the rest of the day or something, they could say, oh no, like Miss Seza, I did all my homework this weekend so that I could go to gym twice this week to be able to play basketball for those 2 40-minute periods. So it gives them a chance to have like movement breaks throughout the day as well.
Just like, you know, like the other, so it's like,
Right.
not like, sports, you know.
Oh, no,
like,
yes.
sports class, they will probably go to sports.
Right, but I think in general, this idea of this 40-minute period a day would give all students opportunity to, if they're on top of everything and they're caught up, that they can have that mental health break in whichever way that they feel comfortable doing it. That's the end goal.
Just to be back on Charlotte, so with guidance, can they schedule guidance visits, like with their guidance counselor during the ARC, or will they be?
I don't think it's currently set up for that just because of ratio, you know what I mean?
Right, no, but if they are going to see their head teacher, if they know, gee, I know I'm not going to showing, but can I go schedule, like, you know, after school I stay to see if I can get an appointment with the guidance counselor during that period of time, because I know it's on my own.
So the short answer for that is students are not allowed to split the 40-minute period. So once they go somewhere, they're there until the end of the 40 minutes. And it's,
Okay.
and as far as the counseling appointments are concerned, again, this is like a right now no, but that doesn't mean in the future.
As a junior,
Yes.
if it's a junior, like.
Right, that's why I specifically mentioned juniors. because
Right, because they're usually now, yeah.
But that doesn't mean that, like, the counseling department is gonna be holding junior, like, support for that process starting. It's not gonna be individual, it will be in groups, but that's gonna happen during ARC. Like, that's part of the idea of ARC, is instead of pulling kids from their English classes or their PE and wellness classes, this is now gonna happen during ARC. So that will be happening, but not on an individual basis, on a collective basis.
Are teachers also going to have training for those kids that can't make that connection and say, I need this?
So we've been having conversations about what this looks like, but as far as formal training is concerned, there isn't any in place. And again, it's because the approach to this, so that it is not in violation of a contract, is you are to be available. That doesn't mean that that's not something that will evolve. Right now, at this point in the school culture change, we've not had any formal training about how to help kids prioritize. But here is my hope. My hope is that as an educator, you have worked to help kids prioritize every single day you are with them. And so this is something that should be organic for people who do this for a living.
There's also a tremendous dynamic shift that happens when, many of our teachers are very charismatic, you know what I mean? But there's a shift that happens in a relationship when I'm ultimately giving you a grade, right? When I'm assigning you homework and giving you a grade, to when I'm not, to when I'm just there for you. So there are kids that might take a month before they open up, right? And sometimes they might never, but they'll say in confidence, I actually like being around that person because they don't talk to me. They just give me some space and they let me hang out, and that's really all I need. But it also starts that kind of curiosity and generates who's having trouble connecting with someone, or I'm having a really difficult time connecting with this kid, to then ask colleagues, like, you have the students, you connect with them, oh yeah, and this is, and it just builds that way of connecting, or identifying where are our shortcomings as a staff, where do we need special training to get on connections with certain kids. Does that answer your question?
I'm kind of curious, if you have a child on an IEP who receives services, will they still be able to go to this, or will their services interfere with it? I'm just kind of curious what that overall looks like, because I know it's individualized, but.
I guess I need to ask what kind of services you're referring to. Like speech and language?
Yeah, for instance, yes.
Okay, so speech and language, a lot of speech and language is done in a collective environment. It's not all one-on-one. So during ARC, there's a distinct possibility that our speech and language specialist would want to do some group work with the people that see her, and that's part of speech and language. It's not always just one person on one person. And so if that meets a student's requirement, then that would certainly happen in that context. As far as individual, I'm trying to think of where that would be.
Yeah, so students that have academic strategies perhaps, right? That might be the teacher or the person in the building with whom they work best, so they might schedule to meet with them.
Academic support?
Yeah, so
okay.
Basically going from, it's
that's okay.
different places it sticks in, but it's like, where it would be 60 minutes, you're adding 40, so it's like 100 minutes of
right.
Support. Wouldn't technically count on the grid, but it would be, extra support.
Yeah. Did that answer the question? I apologize for not being.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm not clear.
Like if a student is receiving services from the school psychologist, for example, this does not take that time for them.
Okay.
Unless there was something where Ms. Gravel, for example, or Ms. Lazarus wanted to see that specific student and it was worked out where they had some specific thing they wanted to do for that 40-minute period of time. Could they possibly go to the school psychologist during this time? Yes. It won't interfere with them being able to use ARC time though. Is that kind of the fear, is that they're going to constantly be booked for their services?
Yes.
Instead of having this great period of time, ideally that won't happen to them. And if I'm their Monday mentor and I keep seeing that they're being booked consistently during ARC for their service, I might call those people and be like, I really think they need to actually go here for this extra help with that teacher during this time today. Let's do something different.
And our service providers are really good at moving when the services are being offered around. So, I think we are so used to working with one another in that way, but as far as meeting the service requirements of the IEP, of course we have to abide by that because that's...
Well, yeah.
Right.
I just wanted to make sure students were still going to be able to go to ARC, and then if maybe down the road try pottery because they've never had an opportunity. I don't want to see those...
And we've actually talked a lot about that because there are programs in the building that are substantially separate.
Yeah.
And we've talked about how this is an incredible opportunity. Instead of just talking with me during day 5, third lunch, that the kids will be able to be a part of the greater community, which we're really excited about, actually. And we've even started talking about some innovative programming where we're creating sort of buddy relationships and bring in some students that are willing to partner with other students who might benefit from that. So yeah, again, start slow, but that's ultimately where we want to go.
I think too, as a parent, if you're talking to your student and you're feeling concerned that something's happening with their ARC period, you, again, because of that Monday mentor piece, you have this adult in the building that you could contact, as well as your school, their school counselor, their guidance counselor, and you could be like, you know, I keep seeing that they're booked during this ARC period consistently, and they've expressed that they want to go to pottery. Is there something that we can all work out, and or your student can come in and advocate for themselves and inform the adults who can help make that adjustment for their schedule?
And I have to say, me not knowing how to answer that question and Ari being able to take it is why we've been doing this as a committee. Because there are some times where you just don't have the answer and you need another brain to listen and respond to it. And that has been the approach that we have taken with the development of this. Like there's been just we do a lot of talking and a lot of just trying to figure out, and you should have seen us trying to figure out this schedule. It was a fascinating process. And we kept looking at Carrie Schwartz, who's our AP calculus teacher, who's on the committee, and I kept going, Carrie! He's like, June, I don't know the numbers happening, you know, because I just couldn't see it, you know, like we all have our strengths. But so that's why I feel just, it's really, after teaching here for 22 years, it's just been an incredible experience to work with my colleagues on a school change initiative. So.
Did you say that all students in a mentor group will be in the same grade level?
Yes. Yep. I lost that battle. I really wanted them to be all jumbled up, but I lost that battle.
Just my feedback on that would be that I think long term, from the community aspect, sure, it makes sense to have mixed groups, but in the time duration you have, that creates a level of complexity
that's why I lost. But you're talking to someone who, like, I teach my kids are 10th, 11th, and 12th graders all in the same room, so I'm like, that's what I was comfortable with, but it's hard. But you're absolutely right, and one of the things that drove us to do single grade is it allows that school counseling piece to get integrated into ARC, and again, stop the pullout from health and wellness and English to do the school counseling programming. So, yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry. That was me in space. It's like, it's been a long day.
So I know this is just a pilot and we'll reassess at the end of the year and when we go forward how that will look, but I'm just wondering if what the bigger intention is for the mentor-student pairing. Is it to carry through all the same mentor with the same student for all the years that they're here?
And so I get that a little bit in what I teach because I can have had many students who start with me in 10th grade and then I see them in 11th grade and then I see them in 12th grade. And in addition to being able to be a part of their lives as they develop, you get to know them really well. And so we're hoping that this will allow every student in this high school to know an adult really well. And when they're talking about, I just had a conversation with one of my senior boys about this today, when they're talking about what is next, there's someone that has watched them and talked with them and can offer them support in what's next when we're done in this building. So yes, and we see ourselves as really being able to partner with school counselors around supporting our students in their next step in their post-graduation planning. Because we will know them, you know, which is an exciting thing.
So I think just for kind of the group's knowledge and a shameless plug for the school council that happens once a month here, that will be a facet by which if parents want to continue to get connected to what's going on. I have a coffee with the parents on January 30th, which I reminded, thank you, Ms. Day. I believe it's a morning one this time. Ms. Carter tells me where to go and I go, but I think it's a morning one. I would imagine for the foreseeable future, home and school association meetings, principals' coffees, school councils, these are great opportunities to come in and say, how's it going with art, or I heard this, I heard that. I'd be happy to discuss those things with you. I would ask through you for your knowledge and to pass along to folks that first week in February, we're going to be starting. We're going to expect a few bumps in the road. The next week, we have a staff meeting that Tuesday, and then that next week is vacation. So that is really part of the time that in case we have this massive programmatic, somehow we missed it. And I don't expect it, but in case we do, we're going to try to ride through it and then fix it in the break and then see how it goes.
And the beauty of having a faculty meeting right in the middle of those first 2 weeks is we'll be able to get feedback from staff as well as what's going on in their individual classrooms. And one of the things that members of the committee are committed to during this time period is there may be days where we have to block ourselves out so that we are running around the school supporting staff. So that's another role that the committee members are willing to undertake in case we need to put out a fire, which we're hoping we don't have, but who knows?
It's like opening a restaurant.
Yeah.
We just hope the customers come. Anyhow, thank you all for taking the time out to come to this. And again, if you have questions from here, feel free to email me or come to any of those forums if you prefer. And see you then.